JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, August 5th, 3:30 on this fine afternoon talk. Really quick about markets. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P to the downside, about a third of a percent, giving back gains from the morning, testing lows at about 10:45, and then bouncing around ever since. Thankfully, held that 627 handle. We'll see how things play out with 30 minutes left in the day. Don't want to see that 626 spot get broken. So I actually was looking to get some hedge puts on the break of the 630 handle. Uh, but I'll talk about that in a second. I'll just for now, I'm just standing pat, right? Um, After the close today, we have earnings, AMD, Supermicro. There's some other names reporting. Do I have the list up here? I thought I did. Certainly going to be an interesting after hours. And then outside of that, it just continues to be somewhat headline driven, right? So we tariff trade deal, uh, Powell comments, whatever, and then earnings, and that's kind of about it this week. We got PMI, the services PMI this morning came in uh, a tad lower than expectations, right at that contraction threshold, right? So 50 and under is under 50 is contraction, above 50 is expansion. So came at a 50.1, so right on that, right on the bar there. So now folks are saying the services number, couple that with the manufacturing data, which came in at contraction level. This is the sign. Now we have the jobs report. So you start adding all that stuff together and you get the R word, right? So this morning too, you saw some of this comments. I forget who posted this. I don't know which analyst this is. Is this Bank of America or one of those saying recession signs and citing that the large downward revisions to non-farm payrolls associated with a higher recession probability. It's like, I mean, there's a probability for recession at all times, right? I mean, sometimes it's 0%, sometimes it's 10%, sometimes it's 50%. Uh, so obviously weaker than expected data um, and contraction data, things that are showing not lack of growth, the probability of a recession, right? So it's funny. I mean, we saw the same chatter in April, so it's February, start of the year. I'm not saying that again to dismiss things, but interesting stuff nonetheless. So we'll see. I mean, again, there's a lot of lag between now and the next Fed meeting, so that opens a lot of uncertainty. We do have Jackson Hole in a couple weeks, so maybe that can add a little more clarity. But 636 to 618 on a SPY, still holding that trading range, and we'll see how things play out overnight into tomorrow. Just you take a look at the move today. We didn't test yesterday's low, so that's a good sign. I think it was 625 and change. Um, so somewhat of an inside day here, and then you look at the not inside day, the highs almost 633, but I think all things considered not too bad. And not only that, small caps are outperforming again. So back to back days of small caps outperforming. I think small caps will be up almost 3% so far this week. So maybe they're starting to steal the baton. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. So now individual names. I had Lemonade on the watch list. I mean, I've had Lemonade on and off for the watch list for quite some time, in and out of calls. I wasn't getting calls into earnings yesterday just because the premiums look a little tough to find on a risk reward basis. They reported earnings this morning, and it wasn't like a blowout quarter, but a beat and raise. And sometimes that's just enough for Lemonade because there's such a high short interest that there's still folks who think that the company is never gonna never gonna be profitable, not going to cease to exist at some point, right? So when you have that large of opinions between some folks who think it's $100 $200 stock and some people who think it's zero, it opens up um, opportunities, right? Especially with the high short interest on a beat like that, high opportunities to make money on the call side. So I was watching this morning and it was 40 41, it was sitting around 42, and then I'm trying to find some decent risk reward strikes. At first I was looking at the August 15s, uh, but then I was looking at the 48s to 49s. I tried to get some 50s. I was trying to 15, then 20, and then 25, and then boom, I got them at 30, and then the stock just took off to the races. In a matter of like 10 minutes, or not even less than that, they were already a double. Uh, I held on to it for a little bit, and then 10 minutes later, locked some in to cover costs for 100%, locked some more in. 10 minutes later for over 400%, and I just held the rest. The rest of the calls is still up close to over 300%. In lieu of trying to get some more strikes for next week or further out, I'll just see how it shakes out tomorrow. If there's resumption, I think there'll still be more opportunities to add some more strikes. If there's not, they're inexpensive, right? So that's kind of how I'll play for now. But what a monster, good way to start off today. And then you take a look. I think it's 53.20 is at the highs that hit in November. So that'd be kind of a spot I'd be watching if we get continuation tomorrow. So that's Lemonade. Um, and then a line. So well, actually, I added Reddit, but I'll talk about Reddit in a second. You know my thoughts here on the line. I put it on the watch list this morning. I was talking a little bit about it last week too. So they reported earnings last Wednesday. Not, I mean, bad earnings, right? And I think Kramer said, horrible. Just they cited every kind of catalyst, negative catalyst out there. Stronger the currency issues, forex issues, tariffs, growth concerns, the consumer, right? And there, Kramer was. I guess he said that they were treating it like their discretionary item, Invisalign, like braces, right? If you don't know the Invisalign, it's kind of like taking over for what used to be braces back in the day. So some of the argument here is that, I mean, some of these when you use their product and you can use financing, right? And so some of the issues, higher rates, maybe push people out of the market. Who knows if that's some of it? It's not like rates have been high just now, right? It's been ongoing, but it was a slight miss, and I think some of that caused the CEO to kind of like do damage control, make sure he kind of was very cautious in his tone. I think that's some of the reason why the stock pummeled. Anyway, got pummeled. Anyway, sold off like 35% or 40% on Wednesday. Started to recoup some of the gains on Friday, and then a filing came out for the CEO did an insider buy for 1 million shares at 130. So it bounced a little bit on Friday, and then Friday. I'm getting my days all mixed up. But anyway, so needless to say, this morning they announced a $200 million. They announced they intend to purchase back $200 million in stock. They already have a 1 billion share buyback authorization in place. So I thought, okay, maybe this is a start of a bounce. And I started looking at some of the moves that it's hit lows, and it had one at April Liberation Day lows all the way down to 140. I think it's 142 and change. Next thing you know, it's at 180 in a couple of weeks. Here it is again, deja vu all over again. I think there's just an opportunity for it to bounce, and whether the bounce sticks or not, I don't know. So in lieu of trying to trade next week's and a week after's, I'll probably just continue to look for weekly strikes to kind of play for a bounce here. I think 142.50 is first, and 147.50 is the level it hit from Friday, and so I went and got inexpensive calls, and I'll probably look for other opportunities to play for upside. So not only do you have the CEO doing the insider buy, the company is doing a buyback, and then I was talking about it last week, and I think I messed up the numbers, but the company has bought over $3 billion worth of their stock back and retired it since 2014. The company is an $11 billion company, so pretty remarkable stuff. They have 900 million in cash on hand, no debt. I just think it bounces, especially if the market finds any kind of footing. So that was the thought process there. Small risk, high possible reward if it does really start to take off. And I put in on FinTwit 2 or 3% tomorrow, and the calls me a couple bags. So that's kind of thought process there. All right, so that's a line. And then Reddit, I was looking to play for the move to all-time highs. I was talking about yesterday afternoon the 240 strikes. It started to look like it was going to break out. It was lower in the pre-market, then bounced right out of the gate. Once it turned, looked like it was ready to go. I went and got some of those strikes, and then sure enough, it really can't break out. It actually hit highs while I was holding the calls, and then it just fizzled. Then it was trading around 204. Didn't want to see the premiums coming out of strikes, so I sold them for a small loss. I'll continue to look for opportunities to play it for downside. It's actually back under $200 here. So, like I keep saying with Reddit, I think it's a great story. I think it hits all-time highs soon enough. JOBY's red today. Is it allowed to have a red session? I guess it is, but inside day two, not at the lows from yesterday's open, so good sign there. And then it's ahead of their earnings tomorrow. So to me, it's almost like it takes a little of the sell the news possibility out of the stock for pulling back here today. So maybe got a little ahead of itself. Hopefully some positive updates, or at least updates on the recent news, and then positive updates going forward. And I think it bodes well to hopefully trade into the 20s and beyond. I'm not that convicted here that I think it trades much higher. I was thinking this morning maybe I was going to lock some more of the 20s in and add the $30 strikes, but for now I'll just hold the last of the $20 October strikes. Doesn't make sense to do that yet. SERV is up here at 1080. Still looking to close the last of the August 1250 as I got yesterday. I keep talking about, at some point FOMO is going to take over on this one. It's just such a huge market. I don't know if I talked about in Iran or I posted on FinTwit, but it's like remarkable the amount of folks doing deliveries on bikes in the cities. Well, New York City, I don't know how the other metro markets look like. I'm sure it's pretty identical. It's like remarkable everywhere, and it's like I you wonder, and of course some of those uh, you go to Grok, and I think the New York State Council of whatever said there's 100,000 bikes. You do the math, 10,000, 10 to 20 deliveries a day. That's whatever. It's a lot of deliveries out there. So that's a lot of market to be addressed. And then, of course, a lot of those deliveries are longer than a mile or 2 miles. So that takes the service a robot kind of out of that kind of market. But to me, it just shows how big the market is. And once they get the robots enough to scale out, I think the market's going to price that in way before it happens. So that's why I continue to be bullish. I'm not going to go on too much more rant on that. They have earnings Thursday, so it's going to be somewhat of a binary event, and it could put the stock back 3 months or more, depending on their update, or it could rocket, right? I'm hoping the latter. And then last but not least, here is United Healthcare. And United Healthcare was playing for bounces. I don't know if it was the end of last year. And then you just watch it. It seems like everybody on FinTwit's been playing this to bounce since like $500 since April, right? And every time it looks like it's going to bounce, next thing you know, a couple days later, it's lower than where it was. So at some point it sticks. I was watching earlier today, and I'm like, and you see the candle from 241 up to like 247, and I'm no news, no catalyst that I could see. So at some point you have to think it bounces. I don't have the gumption or the balls, whatever you want to call it, to try and trade this just yet. But at some point, 265s, 270s, I don't know. Sometimes when it's a crowded trade too, it's just if everybody's on the same side of the fence, it just seems like everybody's going to get burned. So that's that. So hopefully some decent earnings after the close. Maybe some VKTX data at some point. Knock on wood. That'd be great. I was also watching MDB at the open. Did one of those teases again, 225 or whatever, all the way up to over 230. I almost pulled some lottos, spec lottos for the move into 240, and then it does pretty much what Reddit does, pulls back right after the open. Well, about 10-15 or so. Still a name I'm watching for some spec lottos. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.